This is an audio walkthrough of the exhibition Star Witnesses, curated by Aldean Chief Curator Monika Szewczyk. The night sky is a compelling subject for many contemporary artists, as it challenges our very capacity to represent it. And yet, it's a subject we look at, and look to, very often. For millennia, the migrations of stars and planets across the sky have informed and guided the migrations of humans across planet Earth. Star Witnesses presents this connection between cosmic and earthly movements from the perspectives of an international group of contemporary artists. The first work you encounter, by the Diane Evans bookstore, is Solstice by the Vancouver-based artist Paul Wong, and it captures this sense of animation. Wong set up a camera overlooking an alley near Main and Hastings in Vancouver and took photographs over the course of 24 hours during the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. That 24 hours is condensed here into 24 minutes of activity, presented as a stop-motion animation. Through the glass doors, we find even more evidence and recording of activity. Bushra Khalili's The Constellations series, centered on the blue wall, seems at first to present star charts that are actually maps of people's travels. Khalili interviewed refugees fleeing from sites of violence and political instability, particularly from West Asia and North Africa into Europe. To protect their identities, she did not film their faces when she interviewed them, but rather just their hands as they traced their journeys on maps. Khalili has represented these routes with the geopolitical borders stripped away. The work might evoke how Europe has historically profited from the scientific and astronomical knowledge produced in places that people are now fleeing from, and, by extension, Europe's participation in these places' political and economic destabilization over time. The work to the immediate left of Khalili's also addresses refugees in Europe. In 2020, a public art initiative in Austria invited artists to create a postcard, as it was difficult for people to travel or visit with one another during the COVID-19 pandemic. The artist collective Urban Subjects, based between Vancouver and Vienna, responded to this invitation by creating a postcard for the tenants of Austria's largest refugee camp, in Treuskirchen. Stamped with enough postage to be sent anywhere in the world with mail service, Urban Subjects' postcard shows the night sky above Treuskirchen. For someone able to read the stars, this image provides a sort of precise geolocation, but it also speaks to the precarity of not having a roof over one's head at night. Next to this work is another photograph of the night sky taken from the site of a temporary encampment. This was the site of an internment facility where Japanese Americans were detained during World War II. The artist David Horvitz looks up from the vantage of his grandmother, who was imprisoned here, and imagines her staring up at the infinitude of the stars from the confines of forced internment. Across from Horvitz's work, another contemporary artist reflects on her grandparent. Carrie Mae Weems's The North Star is presented in a series of round frames. The artist's grandfather, Frank Weems, was a sharecropper in Arkansas in the 1930s. The wages and working conditions then were so subpar that it was, in effect, a perpetuation of plantation slavery, which was formally abolished in 1865. Frank Weems was an inspiring and persuasive speaker and an effective union organizer, which is why a mob of white supremacists severely beat him and left him on the road to die. But Frank survived, and he made his way north by night, eventually reaching Chicago, very possibly using the North Star as a guide. Carrie Mae Weems has gleaned all of this from research. She never knew her paternal grandfather, who cut off communication with his family for their own safety. Frank Weems has become her North Star, and accordingly, in these round frames, which suggest historical displays of portraiture, we find only an image of the North Star, repeated in each. Now, the stars in the sky appear to us as we observe them at a fixed distance. They never seem closer nor farther away, and yet Weems presents the North Star as something proximate. We seem to get nearer to it, only for it to become distant again, an echo, perhaps, of her ongoing search for her grandfather in archives and records. One major discovery was that Frank Weems had begun a lawsuit against the state of Arkansas, and through her research, Carrie Mae Weems found that she had the pieces to continue this filing, if she chose to. As we think about the title of this exhibition, Star Witnesses, well, the star witness in a trial is the person who comes forward with the key piece of evidence that decisively informs the verdict. Evidence, observation, measurement, these precise methods of documentation, often used in sciences and forensics, are also key to many of the works in this exhibition. And yet, the night sky, cosmos, deep space, these pose a challenge to our comprehension. Via Selmans explores this in her prints. As a child, she couldn't speak English when she first moved to the United States from Latvia around the age of 10, and so would communicate through drawing. Over time, she's been fascinated by deserts, the ocean, the cosmos, and other places and forces that test the limits of understanding. Night Sky 3 combines 3 different printmaking techniques, dry point, aquatint, and photogravure, in trying to portray this infinite complexity. The next work over, by the German artist Thomas Ruff, also suggests someone grappling to make sense of the incomprehensible. Alongside millions of others, Ruff watched the Gulf War played out on television in the early 1990s. This was the first time that transmissions from active war zones were broadcasted live 24 hours a day. Much of this footage was night vision imagery, grainy and green. Unsettled by the tranquility of his hometown of Dusseldorf during such violence and unrest, Ruff photographed the sky over Dusseldorf with a night vision camera, calling out the complacency and complicity of places seemingly far removed from the war zone. The night sky would become an endearing subject for Ruff, whose works continue in the next section of the exhibition. The large-scale photographs presented here began as scientific documents, colorless research photographs published by NASA. Ruff adds his own artistic interventions, such as tinting the surfaces of Mars and Saturn's moon Titan with color. He bridges these scientific studies with the genre of landscape photography and abstract painting, inviting us to view these images not simply as recordings, but as artworks we can interpret, and as places with depth, distance, and proximity to us. Ruff's Stern series takes these ideas of proximity and distance even further. These images of stars are contingent on earthly movement, specifically that of the Schmidt telescope, which was stationed in the Atacama Desert in Chile, one of the driest places on Earth. Because of its lack of humidity, the Atacama Desert is an ideal place for viewing the cosmos undistorted. On clear and moonless nights, the Schmidt telescope's camera would capture 2-hour-long exposures of the sky. Now, because of the Earth's orbit, long exposures of the stars should be streaked and blurred. But the Schmidt telescope was mounted to a base that rotated at the same speed as the Earth, but in the opposite direction. Thus, these long-exposure photographs peer deeply into the cosmos, fixed on a single steady point. Hoof acquired over 600 photographic plates of these crystal-clear images of the stars, manipulating them subtly to heighten the whites and deepen the blacks of the photographs, and therefore draw us even further into the depths of space. Collaborations between art and science can be incredibly germane. While in residence at the University of British Columbia, Paul Wong learned of the discovery of nixolon, wood that, when treated in a plasma reactor, becomes incredibly light absorbent, absorbing 99% of light that strikes it. So, adjacent to Thomas Hoof's photographs, you can see Paul Wong's new work, Parallel Universes in a Small Window. The nixolon sculptures reference faceted diamonds, alluding to the relative rarity and value of this brand new material. But also, notice how the facets completely disappear on the lower parts of the sculpture. This blackout darkness hints at the vast potential and as of yet undiscovered uses of nixolon. Perhaps it will one day be used in astronomical instruments like telescopes. But such telescopic precision isn't Paul Wong's concern in his full moon drawings on view nearby. For this work, Wong opened his camera shutter atop a hill in Nicaragua during a full moon and took long exposures of the moon while moving his camera around. The resulting images show the moon not as a clear orb, but as a streak, like a brushstroke or the stroke of a pen. Photography means writing or drawing with light, and Wong explores this literally. And from the 21 photographs presented here, he chose a selection of full moon drawings to be rendered as neon signs. And you can find these on display on the ground floor at the southwest corner of the polygon facing out towards Kate's deck. The form of the full moon echoes in the Korean moon jars on display in the glass cases in the same gallery where we see Parallel Universes and Thomas Hoof's large-scale photographs. Moon jars earn this nickname from their round shape, pale glaze, and their unique proportions. Many ceramic vessels are wider at the base for stability, but with moon jars, the bases are always narrower than the openings at the top, giving them an appearance almost as if they're weightless or floating. Presented here is an earlier ceramic vessel from the Joseon dynasty, similar to what would become known as moon jars, and a contemporary moon jar by the artist Park Soo-jae. In order to make vessels like these, ceramicists have to throw the jars in two separate halves and then join the two hemispheres together. Therefore, for some commentators, the moon jar has become symbolic of a unified Korea. The relationship between ceramics and the moon is also present in the work of Vancouver artist Judy Radul, which is presented in the Dena Holmes Gallery through the glass door to the right of the moon jar. In her installation, This is Television, Radul speculates on the lineages of visual technologies and our lunar satellite. Perhaps there's a relationship between the moon and ceramics and glass and fiber optics, which relates to television, to wireless, to internet, to AI. One technology is always predicted by the one previous, going all the way back to the moon, which has, from the first, always been a televisual event. Television, after all, means distant seeing. She pairs images of a supermoon photographed in Berlin at high resolution with snapshots of TV monitors cast to the side of the road, monitors that only a short time prior might have been considered the height of cutting-edge technology. Playing with this flux between the obsolete and the new, Radul's video work is played from a 16mm film projector. On the subject of projection, there is one final work that hasn't yet been discussed. Head out of Judy Radul's installation, back through the glass doors, and walk straight past Paul Wong's work into the darkened theatre. This houses the work of Australian Indigenous artist Daniel Boyd. In his ancestral Aboriginal cultures, dream time is crucially important. Boyd observes that as land and language are colonized, it's all the more critical that dreaming be protected. His 2-channel video, which draws on traditional imagery of proliferating points of light and color, bears resemblance to stars and nebulae. And though it might appear tightly choreographed to the music, the sound and the visuals are in fact on separate tracks, and therefore the work is different with every viewing. Its title, which could very well be the title for this whole exhibition, is History is Made at Night. For more information, you can consult the extended labels that accompany each work in the exhibition. Enjoy your viewing of Star Witnesses, and thanks for listening.